Hi guys, I'm Prab Singh, and in this video I'm going to cover the Ruy Lopez opening or the Spanish game. This is just an introduction video, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. I would cover each and every variation of the opening in a separate video. Now to begin with the opening, you should know that Ruy Lopez is one of the oldest and basic opening for any e4 player. Ruy Lopez is played at all levels. You can find that many grandmasters play it frequently in their games. Opening begins by white playing the e4. By this move, white challenges the d5 square and the f5 square. f5, it stops white from pushing queen pawn forward from d2 to d4. Knight to f3, challenging the e5 pawn and supporting the d4 once again. Knight to f6, stopping the d4 push and supporting the pawn on e5. Bishop to b5, white challenges both knight and the black pawn on e5 by attacking the knight on c6. And now this is the beginning of the Ruy Lopez. Here the opening branches out in mainly three variations, namely mainline, which lead to open or closed Ruy Lopez, or the Berlin defense, which starts after knight f6 by black, or the exchange variation. And here black is the one who chooses now. The first move is pawn to a6, and by far the most common one. It's challenging the bishop immediately, and here bishop has only two options in this position. Getting back the bishop to d3, c4 or e2 would be a waste of tempo because it wouldn't keep the pressure on the c6 knight, so the most common idea here is to move the bishop to a4, which is still putting pressure on the c6 knight. And another option that white has is to take on c6. This is the easiest variation to learn, I would say, and it's the exchange variation of Ruy Lopez. And the idea here is I would keep the pressure on e5 by simply removing the defender, and after e6, white is counting on its pawn majority on the king side, which is far superior than the black's pawn majority on the queen side. And that's it. White may be able to create a pass pawn when some central pawns get exchanged, and this means in any endgame, white would have an advantage. Despite the same number of pawns, white has a better pawn structure, and in this position, white can't take on e5, which you might have thought after the knight and bishop exchange. Because if he did, then black would play queen to d4. And it is one of the most common Ruy Lopez opening trap which players fall into. Because when your knight retreats, queen takes on e4, and here, after this exchange, black is in a better position because it has taken the white king's right to castle. Black would have equal material with a better position. But after d takes on c6, the line is still very complex, and there are a lot of lines in the exchange variation of Ruy Lopez. I will be covering them in a separate video, but this is the second way to react to pawn to a6. Now, after a6, white has two options, either to move the bishop to a4 or to capture on c6. By far, the most common move is bishop to a4. 99% of the game, you will find that black would reply with knight to f6, simply putting the pressure on e4. White castles. The pawn on e4 still can't be taken because white would play rook to e1, targeting both knight on e4 and the pawn on e5. And so black continues with bishop e7. And after rook to e1, this is the closed Ruy Lopez. And once again, I would say that 90% of the games continue with black playing b5, bishop retreating to b3, castle king side, c3, d6, and I would say that this is the starting position of the closed Ruy Lopez. And this game can be probably seen in 20% of the top grandmaster games, and in this position, white has still one move to play, and that is h3. And after h3, white has now completed the first part of his plan, and now he is letting black to choose how to continue the game. The point of all these moves played by white from the beginning is to push the pawn on d4 to create a strong center, That was the purpose of the c3 move, and that was the purpose of every move so far, to push the pawn on d4. Black in a way has tried to stop that, but he has plans of his own. The second plan of white is to push the d4 pawn and to maneuver his knight on b1 by playing d4 first and moving the knight to d2, then to f1 and to g3. It is one of the most common maneuver in chess, and almost every close Ruy Lopez game sees that maneuver. And black, on the other hand, has few plans of his own. Firstly, he might try to move his f6 knight out of the way for the f pawn to move, to break white pawn play. Another idea is to push the pawn forward, but for that to happen, the c6 knight has to move. It will either have to go to a5 or to b8 or to a7. And black is also attempting to play the move d5 after the maneuver of knight from b8 to d7 square. From this position, black has to choose how to continue the game, and there are many variations from here. The main variations are the Breyer variation, that is knight to b8, and the point of this variation is that black is trying to remaneuver his knight to a much more useful square, which is the d7 square. And from d7, it's making room for c pawn to move and to break into the center. It's also defending the e5 pawn, which is making the main push for black playing d5 a real possibility now. And from this position, white is able to continue in several ways. Black as well, and I will cover the variation in a separate video too. After h3, the second most common variation is the Chigorin variation, which continues with knight to a5. The point here is to gain the tempo over the b3 bishop, which has to retreat to c2. The bishop retreats in this position. The black plays c5, take to h2, knight to c6. As you can see, black has placed its knight back into the center, and if you notice that the pawn is now no longer on the c7, it's on c5, and black has definitely gotten something out of the position, and he had made the white bishop retreat as well. This is the closed Ruy Lopez, and now you have to remember this position as it is seen in most of the closed Ruy Lopez games. And now other variations after bishop to b5 instead of a6 are the Berlin defense, which starts with knight to f6. Once again, this variation has few lines for both white and black. I will show them in a separate video when I will do a detailed analysis of Berlin defense. But the most common line, which is called the Berlin endgame, goes like this. White plays castle king side. In this position, knight on f6 takes on e4, pawn to d4, knight to d6, bishop cancels on c6, d takes c6, d takes e5, chasing the knight back. And now after knight to f5, the queens get exchanged. And this is now the starting position of Berlin defense. The point here is that even though black, after losing his castling right, has a bishop pair, he has a possibility of creating a strong attack in the middle game. And if he manages to get something from the initiative he is able to create, he will be better, and in exchange for that, white has much better pawn structure and the castle king, of course. Here white is realistically able to create a passed pawn. On the other hand, black has pawn majority on the queen side, but if you would notice, these pawns are double, so there is really no chance of him creating a passed pawn. So in theory, any piece exchange favors white, as less pieces on the board, the pawns become more important. There are a lot of variation in this, and so I can't even explain them in this video, but I will surely make a video on that. Now this is the end of the introduction video, I'll make a next video on the exchange variation of Ruy Lopez. And till then, if you want to practice the tactics or puzzles, do check out Indian Chess page on Instagram and follow it. It provides different tactic puzzles for beginners, amateurs, and even advanced players. Thanks for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more such videos.